Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Here are some tips for using the trash on your Mac. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So the trash, or the bin as it's called in many countries, is the primary tool you use on your Mac to delete files. It's part of a two-step process. If you want to delete a file, you first move it into the trash and then you empty the trash. This is meant to be a safety net so you don't accidentally delete something because it's too easy to delete a file. So before I even talk about tips, I'm going to caution you about using the trash incorrectly. A lot of people will put files in the trash even if they're not sure they want to delete them. The idea being that they can look in the trash, review those files first, and then empty the trash. But you should never do this. Think of it just like a trash can at your house. Not one inside your house, but the one outside that's collected. Sure, if you put something in there, there is a little bit of time for you to maybe recover it if you made a mistake. But you would never put anything in that trash can unless you were absolutely sure you wanted to get rid of it forever. The same is true with your trash or bin on your Mac. If you have files that you want to move into a place where you can review them to see if you want to delete them, create a folder for that. Put them in there and then move them to the trash only when you're sure you want to delete them. Don't use the trash itself as part of a review process. Okay, so let's get to the tips. First, you don't have to drag and drop something to the trash like that. A much better way that most people use today would be to select a file or several files using Command or Shift, and then you can go to File and then move to Trash. But you still wouldn't even use that. You would use Command Delete. And this would move the files to the trash the same way as dragging. It just is a lot easier. Now there's several different ways to do the next step and empty the trash. One is to go to the trash. I'm going to just double click on it here, but you can also Control click and choose Open. And then you're looking at your trash folder and there's an empty button here at the top right. You can click that to empty the trash. But without even opening up the trash folder, you can also go to Finder and then Empty Trash. This will prompt you to ask if you're sure you want to do it. But you can skip the prompt by holding the Option key down and you can see the three dots go away. There's a keyboard shortcut for this. It'll empty the trash without the prompt. Now if you decide you want to throw away a file in one step, you can do it. So you would select the file that you want to delete. And then if you go to File and then move to Trash, notice that if you hold the Option key down, that changes to Delete immediately. The keyboard shortcut is simply Option Command Delete. And this will skip the trash and delete that file or all the files you have selected. Now when you put a file or files in the trash, I'll move these three items to the trash with Command Delete. If you made a mistake, the quickest way to recover is not to use any special functionality, just undo. The undo function works on moving files from one location to the other and it works on moving files to the trash. If you go to Edit and then Undo, it says Undo Move of 3 items. Because that's all you've really done here is moved those items to the trash. So I'll just use Command Z and those files return to where they were. This of course only works if that was the very last thing that you did. If you move some things to the trash, say yesterday, you're not going to be able to use Undo to get them back. However, you can put files back from the trash very easily using another function. I'm going to use Command Delete to remove those files and put them in the trash. And if I look in the trash here, I can see what's there and I can select a file. And then I can go to File and notice that Command Delete is now Put Back. It's the opposite. And if I use Put Back, it actually returns that file to the location and it even opens the folder to show it to me. And you could do that with a selection of files as well. I can do File and Put Back and all of those go back. And this will even work if the items are from different locations. So for instance, I'll select a file from this location here, Command Delete to move it to the trash, and this location here, Command Delete to move it to the trash. If I were to select both of these files here and then choose Put Back, it'll put each one of them back to its original place. You can see they're both back in those folders. Now let's say I do have a bunch of things in the trash here and I want to empty the trash, but I want to kind of do a few of these first. Maybe there's a huge file in there and I just want to get rid of that right away. Well, with any file here you can select it and then you still have the option to go to File and with Put Back hold the Option key down and it changes to Delete immediately. You can also Control click here and then Delete immediately and that will get rid of that one file while not getting rid of any of the rest right now. You can also see in this context menu other items here that are useful like empty trash and put back for that file that's selected. Now when you're using the trash itself you can use any Finder view. Using the list view is particularly useful because it gives you lots of information. But if you control click on the column headings here and you add the date added column, you get a list here and it shows you the day and time that each item was added to the trash. So if you go into the trash to find a file and you don't know its name but you know when you added it to the trash, you can use this date added column. You could sort in either direction and try to find the item by the time it was added. Now I know a problem a lot of us have with the trash is we put things in there and then forget to ever empty the trash. Well, you can fix this by setting your Mac to automatically delete items from the trash whenever they've been in the trash for 30 days or longer. To turn this on, go into System Settings and then go to General and then Storage. And then look for Empty Trash Automatically. Turn that on and now anytime something's been in the trash for 30 days it's automatically deleted. So your trash doesn't grow to be too big. You never have to worry about when you go in and empty the trash. You just put things in there and the safety net that is the trash is now a 30-day safety net. So here's an interesting thing about the trash. On your Mac your trash is actually 2 folders, not 1. These files that we've been removing here have been in iCloud Drive Documents. Well, let's go to my Home folder here and then let's look at another folder, say the Pictures folder, and I'm going to delete some files in the Pictures folder. So these aren't in iCloud Drive but in my local Home folder. So they get added to the trash as well. I'm going to select this first file that came from iCloud Drive and do Command I to get info. And you can see its location now is an iCloud Drive trash, or more accurately .trash, an invisible folder that's at the top level of iCloud Drive. But what if I go to this file here that didn't come from iCloud Drive? If I get info on that, you could see this one's located on my local drive under Users, My User Account, and a folder called Trash. So these files, even though they're both shown here in the Trash folder, are actually in 2 different locations. So the Trash folder is actually showing you a combined view of your iCloud Drive trash and your local drive trash. And note that files like this one that are on iCloud Drive trash can also be seen in the Files app on iOS and iPadOS devices. But there it's not called trash. In the Files app it's called Recently Deleted. But of course you wouldn't see the files that are local to your Mac. They don't exist in iCloud, so you won't see them on your iPhone or iPad, of course. Now one last thing to know about trash. Sometimes when you add a file to the trash, say a big file that you want to delete to clear out space, and then you empty the trash, you may notice that you don't get any space back on your drive. Well, you always will get the space back, but sometimes you won't get it back immediately. Usually this has to do with the backup process. A file may have been flagged for a future Time Machine backup, and when you delete that file it doesn't get rid of it completely because it still has to complete that backup. You can usually speed up this process by doing a Time Machine backup right there and then. If you're using a MacBook that you only sometimes plug into your Time Machine drive, plug it in then and do the backup. And that should either clear out the space after the backup is done or within the next 24 hours. So when you empty the trash and notice you don't get all your space back, that's by design. It's to make sure that your backups are complete as they should be, so deleting a file doesn't actually retroactively pull that file from your backup because the backup hasn't been updated yet. Hope you found all these tips useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.